En este vídeo de 2007 del ejército ruso se puede ver el lanzamiento de la bomba más grande del mundo. Es tan potente que ha sido llamada el padre de todas las bombas. Está cargada con 7 toneladas de explosivo no convencional. Con respecto a una bomba tradicional, el objetivo de las armas termobáricas no es destruir infraestructuras, sino pulverizar seres humanos con su fuerza explosiva. Si el padre de todas las bombas explotara sobre una ciudad como Madrid, este sería el radio de destrucción. Según la inteligencia de Reino Unido, una versión más pequeña de esta bomba termobárica se habría utilizado en Ucrania, lanzada por estos tanques especiales. Y ahora mirad esta otra bomba. Seguro que muchos ya la reconocen, se llama Little Boy y es la bomba atómica que explotó sobre Hiroshima. La primera bomba atómica. Su energía es casi 30 veces más grande. Si lo pusiéramos en un mapa de la capital española, la destrucción arrasaría todo el centro histórico. Pero si a explotar fuera esta bomba, llamada Tsar, la cabeza nuclear más grande nunca construida en 1961 por la Unión Soviética, aniquilaría todo en un radio de 35 kilómetros. Afortunadamente, una bomba como esta nunca podría explotar. Solo se construyó un ejemplar para un ensayo militar. Pero ahora, con la guerra en Ucrania, Rusia ha amenazado a los países de la OTAN con el uso de armas nucleares en un posible conflicto bélico.
Приказываю министру обороны и начальнику генерального штаба перевести силы сдерживания российской армии в особый режим несения боевых.
Sin embargo, los errores de las fuerzas rusas en Ucrania, las dificultades de sus soldados en el campo de batalla, hacen sospechar sobre si es real la amenaza de Putin.
Anything that you see that might be a failure in equipment on the conventional side is not likely to be mirrored on the nuclear side. Rejuvenation of their military, that they would 100% prioritize their nuclear forces before conventional. The Russians spent a lot of money after 2003, when oil prices spiked after the Gulf War, on rebuilding their entire strategic arsenal after the hard years of the 1990s. And now they have a very capable, very diverse set of weapons. But the main part of their refurbishment of their nuclear arsenal has already been completed. And so over the past 6-7 years, they've put a lot of money into conventional forces.
Estados Unidos fue el único país nuclear del mundo durante 5 años. En 1949, la Unión Soviética consiguió su primera ojiva nuclear. Durante 40 años, las principales potencias mundiales han ampliado su armamento hasta el final de la Guerra Fría. Estados Unidos y la URSS llegaron a construir casi 3.000 cabezas nucleares. 1.000 de ellas están listas en todo momento para ser utilizadas. Pero con el pasar de los años, la estrategia de estos dos países sobre el uso de las armas nucleares ha cambiado mucho.
In the dawn of nuclear weapons, there were people who basically thought that nuclear weapons were just bigger bombs. And people who thought of nuclear weapons as just bigger bombs didn't think of them in terms of completely destroying the enemy's homeland, but also in terms of winning on the battlefield. And its purpose was to blow a giant hole in the ground so that a Soviet tank army would have to stop and go around the hole. In the West, we tend not to think about nuclear weapons as battlefield tools, although we do still have some non-strategic nuclear weapons that were left over from the Cold War that we think still have remaining missions. This is what we call the B-61, which is on the US forward deployed nuclear weapons in Europe. But Russia, unlike us, has doubled down on the utility of tactical nuclear weapons. So they have lots of them. Russia has maintained these capabilities and bought more of them. We think they have around 2,000 tactical nuclear weapons, whereas we think the US has around 200. And again, that just tells you they think this is a much more useful thing than we think, because we think any use of nuclear weapons could immediately lead to World War III, where evidently they might think that they can control the use of nuclear weapons so it doesn't spin into total annihilation.
Según un estudio de la revista científica Safety, especializada en seguridad, se necesitaría la detonación de 100 cabezas nucleares estratégicas para destruir la infraestructura social de una nación grande como Estados Unidos o Rusia.
Russia has a full range of nuclear weapons. They have intercontinental ballistic missiles. These are missiles that are launched from a silo, a hole in the ground in Russia, and can fly all the way to the United States. They have sub-launched ballistic missiles. These are missiles that are launched from a submarine, that air-launched cruise missiles. These are missiles that are launched from airplanes. They also have missiles and bombs that are intended for shorter range targets. And they're meant to be launched at targets in Asia or in Europe for warfighting. All of these warheads tend to be in the 100 kiloton range. That is at least 4 times bigger than the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Some of them are much bigger in the 200, 300, 400 kiloton range.
Frente a esta amenaza, ¿cómo pueden defenderse los países de la OTAN, sobre todo en Europa, que ahora es el principal objetivo de las amenazas rusas?
We got rid of almost all of our air and missile defense in Europe. Almost all of it is gone. It is one of the most notable already identified shortfalls at NATO is forward deployed air defenses, just to defend yourself against bad guys' airplanes. The only thing we have really is the missile defense sites, which are not complete, which are designed only to intercept 1 or 2 missiles being launched from a country like Iran. So we are uniquely vulnerable. In the meantime, Russia has built incredibly extensive air defense systems, and they are actually leading the way on missile defense systems to defend themselves. And I think at some point, an easy and non-escalatory and smart way to defend Europe is to improve our air defenses.
En 2020, el Kremlin publicó por primera vez su doctrina nuclear. Esa maniobra de transparencia escondía una amenaza. Dejaba entender que Rusia podría utilizar armas nucleares en una guerra convencional. El artículo 4 dice explícitamente que Rusia podría utilizar armas nucleares para prevenir o acabar un ataque contra Rusia o sus aliados.
The concern is that President Putin himself has said, if the West intervenes in the Ukrainian conflict, we'll see consequences unimaginable, unseen in history. This is a clear threat of using nuclear weapons against the West, not in response to a Western use of nuclear weapons, but in response to a Western intervention in the conflict in Ukraine. These are normally the things that we don't think of as rational leaders saying. So this tells me that Putin is so concerned that the resistance in Ukraine is beyond what he imagined, and worried that the West will at some point want to intervene, that he wants to threaten us now. So the question is, how credible do we think his threat is? And is there a point where we have to call him on his bluff? Or do we say, no, you can do anything you want to civilians and we don't care, and see what he does? And if he says, nope, I'm willing to risk World War III to kill these civilians, I find that very unlikely. But Putin loves doing very unlikely things. That in that circumstance, he will use nuclear weapons, because then he becomes a global pariah